Welcome to Being Multidimensional with Ron Navarre.
And so, everyone, welcome. This is Ron Navarre. This is our second hour of Bloom. And I'll let Ron introduce himself because he has a vast experience of living arts, ancient arts. And our intention tonight is to share more about the invocation and activation of self-love and self-care. So, Ron, please introduce yourself.
Christy, thank you so much. What a joy to be here. I am the founder of Stress Defense, Inc., and the Sovereign Soul Song Collective. I am an energetic facilitator, healer, teacher. I teach energetic embodiment practices, Tai Chi, Qigong, yoga, Reiki, breathing, meditation. I have a background in theater, movement, dance. So a lot of embodied practices and experiences, going on about 50 years now. And the topic of self-love and self-care, I think, is really relevant right now, especially with what's going on in the world, which is a lot of activity, a lot of change and uncertainty. A lot of people are feeling sort of lost and ungrounded and uncertain about what is going to happen and how to respond. For me, the essence of, or the answer to all of those questions is turning inward instead of outward. So it all begins with self, but we sort of have to define what self means. So when we typically describe self, what we are describing is identity. The identity, which is a construct that was cultivated, developed, and in many ways thrust upon us by our parents, our families, our communities, our faith, our schooling. But it's not the authentic self. And the work that I do really centers around locating and remembering who we really are as an authentic being, as a unique soul presence. So I often talk about authentic presence versus identity. So if you're going to take care of self, you have to sort of distinguish what part of self you are going to locate. If you are working with the identity aspect of self, what you're doing is building more identity, which isn't necessarily true to who you truly are. So this process is one of introspection, asking the question, who am I? Who am I really? Who have I always been as I came into this incarnation, into this life? That authentic presence is something that most people don't witness unless they have children. I have two. And I did a lot of work, a lot of training, introspection on myself before I had children. And then when I had children, I saw something that I'd never witnessed before. And that was a true, authentic presence. There was no identity in that child, in the infant. There was just awareness and connection and curiosity. And that is the essence of who we are. There's more to it as we begin to grow, as we begin to discover and often remember our authentic soul presence. We see this in a child's interests or in their behaviors or in their unique habits, talents, and gifts that they come in with at a very early age. So in terms of parenting, my wife and I decided we were not going to raise our children the way that we were raised. We were going to provide a space to discover who these little souls needed to be instead of who we wanted them to become. And that's a rare thing, by the way. But this is what happens when you have children later in life. You have the luxury of looking at your own upbringing and how other people have raised children. And it was really a spiritual choice as well to say, we know in our hearts that these souls are already complete. They are already fully formed. They just need to be nurtured into that wholeness. And in that process, we sort of pulled back. Instead of telling them who we wanted them to be, we allowed them the opportunity to discover who they wish to become. And so if they were interested in music, we provided that opportunity. If they were interested in archaeology, we provided that opportunity. If they wanted to paint or draw or dance or sing or just be in nature, we tried to accommodate that with boundaries, and also understanding that they needed to know how to conduct themselves in the greater world. The process was one of reflection. As I was looking at my beautiful, pure child, I was also looking at myself, and it made me question, well, who am I? And what I saw initially was my conditioning. I saw my training. I saw the roles that I created for myself that my family asked me to play and then relied on me playing, and then another layer of role and identity to survive, to thrive, to get what I needed in my life. But that wasn't really me. And so every time that I would become aware of a layer of that, I would look back in the eyes of my child. And the weird thing is, both of them, and they're 5 years apart, when they would look at me, they would be looking through my mask, through my identity, at my authentic self. And it was unnerving because it made me feel like, oh my God, I have nowhere to hide, you know? And it was also something that other people sort of commented on as well. When they would look at them, they would go, whoa, I feel like they're looking at my soul. And I believe that is true. And I also feel that these newer generations that have come in have that already. That is part of their perception of life. They are penetrating through the illusion and through the false structures, the artificial systems, and just really looking at the truth of now. So that process developed my children in their 20s now. So it gave me time to do more work on self and continue to ask, who am I? I had a very interesting experience in my 20s. I was in Tokyo. I was choreographing a show. Late one night, I'm looking in the mirror in my hotel room, and I'm just looking at my own face. And I said, who am I? And all of a sudden, I saw the aura around my head and shoulders. I saw a bright yellow-green light. And it started to grow brighter and brighter. And it was unlike any light that I had seen before. I looked into my own eyes, and my face, all the external features of my face began to morph and to change. I looked like a young girl. I looked like an old man. I looked like an animal. I had all of these different facets that were coming through. My eyes stayed the same. And as we say, the eyes are the windows of the soul. But for me, and I asked myself, like, what am I looking at? Is this past life? Are these old identities? And in hindsight, I look at that and I go, I think that was true. And that experience taught me that I wasn't who I thought I was. I wasn't who I was told to be. I was more. I was much more than that. So that began my journey of questioning, who am I? And now this is a deep question that a lot of people don't like. Because when we ask, who am I, we have to question at a core level. And with that inquiry comes who I have become compared to who I wish to be now. And I believe that we're in a time where a lot of who we have been told to become and conditioned to become is no longer serving us as individuals. It's no longer serving us as a soul who, in my opinion, have come here to learn, to experience. So the identity crises is something that's happening not just on a personal level, it's happening on a national level. And we are questioning our national identity, not just the United States, but many countries around the world. You know, what is going on? How can this be? Why is this? When it comes back to, well, who are we as a collective? But then we have to bring it back down to who am I now? So that's my little journey into self. And then we get into love, self-love. So I'm going to ask you, Christy, how would you define love?
I would define love as our innate creative power, our innate creative source energy.
I like that. And I hear that as a definition from a lot of people. In our society, we often like to define love as romantic attachment, you know, but that's really not love, because with attachment comes an agenda of ownership, of control. My definition of love is unconditional acceptance. Unconditional acceptance. This is something that I learned from an aunt of mine when I was a child, who had a very large family. And with a large family, a lot of drama, a lot of chaos, and not all of it was good or healthy or even legal in terms of what some of my relatives got into. But my aunt accepted her children unconditionally, no matter what they did. And that was something that I was just so aware of. And I thought, wow, that's something that I had not witnessed before, because there was no judgment in that. Now, there's a moral and ethical standard that my aunt was trying to teach her children, but regardless, you know, you don't have control over your children. They're going to do things. And some of those things might be against your better judgment or your ethical upbringing or your religious training. But regardless, my aunt accepted them unconditionally. So I took that as my definition of real love. And when you think about it, what everybody is really searching for is acceptance. We're all looking to be seen and heard and felt and accepted. And I've played with that a lot and then turned it inward and realized that to understand self-love and self-care, you have to start with self-acceptance. If you don't accept yourself, which is probably the biggest challenge for anyone, I don't think you can really understand self-love and self-care until you get to a level of acceptance. And that is no easy journey, especially when we have been conditioned with so much judgment, so much expectation about who we're supposed to be, what we're supposed to achieve, and we're always looking for external validation. Like, I can't be loved and accepted until I get straight A's, or until I get that job, or until I'm wealthy. That is not acceptance. That's condition. And so there's a lot of distortion in that. But what I discovered at a certain point, probably in my early 50s, was that I didn't know how to really love myself. I heard people talk about it. I heard all these wonderful, wise sages always say it, but I really didn't understand it, because I did not understand that in order to love myself, I had to accept myself first. Once I became aware of that, then that became another sort of path of inquiry and exploration. Well, how do you do it? What does it really mean to accept yourself? Now, I worked in theater for many years. I worked in Broadway theater, and I had a voice teacher, this super talented African-American man who had done several Broadway shows. I got to do a show with him, and he was one of the most amazing singers I've ever worked with. He could sing anything. He saw me in the show, and he came up to me one day and he said, "I see you seeing everyone else." And that sort of like made me go, "What?" And he said, "It's okay. I just want you to know that I see you." And that's when I said, "Okay, I want you to be my teacher." And he took me on. His way of teaching was not like any other voice teacher I had ever studied with. He wouldn't even let me make a sound until I could be fully present with myself, until I could be grounded and centered in this moment and claim my place in space and time. How he described it to me was, I would see him go out and sing, and there was no one more powerful, more captivating, who could hold an audience and take them on a journey like this man, Thomas Young. And he said to me one day, "You know, when you walk out on stage to sing, all you have to do is open up the gates to your soul and just let them see you. You don't have to go in and dig around with a shovel and a pitchfork. All you have to do is let them see you. And when you're done, you can close those doors." So profound. I saw him sing a cabaret act one night, and in the audience there was a guy, he had a lot to drink, and he was weeping, and he was talking to Thomas while he was singing. And it made the whole audience so uncomfortable, because it was an intimate environment, and everyone was like, "Oh my God, what's he going to do? How do you handle this?" And I myself was thinking the same thing. And what Thomas did was something I had never seen any performer do in a cabaret setting or in any other. He focused right on that man, and he sang right to him. And he let that man talk to him while he sang. Now, I know performers who would have said, "Excuse me, sir, can you stop that? I'm singing a song." What Thomas did was accept the presence of this man in pain. He acknowledged it, and he sung to his soul. Everybody in the audience was weeping. It was unbelievable, because we knew what he was doing. We felt it. We could see it. And it was, to this day, one of the most extraordinarily healing moments in any theater performance I had ever witnessed. And it taught me another level of what he was trying to teach me in our lessons. It's not just about accepting yourself. It's about accepting everyone, everything as it is. So self-love is accepting self. Self-care is acknowledging what you need and providing that need if you can, or asking for that need from others. Again, not an easy thing to do. So for me, the way I grew up, I never asked for anything. I never needed anything. Everybody said, how you doing? I'm fine. What do you need? Nothing. Well, that was just my trauma talking. That was me trying to protect myself. It took me into my probably mid-40s to finally admit that I had needs of my own, instead of always trying to help others, please others, take care of others. So acknowledging your own needs in life are a really important step toward identifying your authentic presence and acknowledging your own self-acceptance. I need food, I need clothing, I need companionship, I need money, I need many essential things for survival. And then once those needs are fulfilled, I have other needs on other dimensional levels. Creative needs, inspirational needs. It's a process and a practice of always asking, who am I now? Now. What do I need now? And when I say, who am I now? Now is a very important term. Often when we like to describe ourselves, someone says, hey, how are you? Who are you? What do you do? What we're really describing is our past. What my job has been, what I have done, where I have lived. But we really don't tune in and say, well, this is who I am right now. If you really look at it and think about it a little bit, you realize you're not the same person today that you were yesterday. You're not the same person you were today as you were last week, last year. The fact of the matter is we are constantly evolving, constantly changing. And one of my core practices is, in the morning, to get up, sit on the edge of the bed, begin breathing, and ask myself the question, who am I today? And that sort of sets me up for a level of acknowledging a truth, the truth that I am not who I was yesterday. If I assume I am the same person I was yesterday, I'm going to try to act the way I did yesterday, respond to life the way I did yesterday. But today's a new day. This is a whole new experience. And if I'm trying to do what I did yesterday and apply that over a live fluid stream today, it will not be effective. I won't be responding. I'll be reacting to my own unfulfilled expectations of myself. It's not working out the way it was yesterday. All right, I learned this in theater again, of going out and doing a show night after night. I have done over 3,000 stage performances, and it's a different audience every night. Everybody's different, every single show. You must keep that in mind so that you can listen and respond in the moment to what is present right now. So I ask myself, who am I now? And the answer is, I don't know yet. I got to figure it out today. I have to discover it by living fully, moment to moment, and responding fully now. So that's the first practice that I want to introduce, which is ask yourself, who are you now? Let go of your past, or at least that grip on it, and then begin to go a little deeper. Connect to your breath, connect to your body, and begin to listen through your physical presence. What do I feel right now? Now, another little practice is called calling conditions. And all I'm going to do is describe out loud my experience, moment to moment. So I say, I feel warm. I feel comfortable. I feel relaxed. I feel seen. I feel uncertain. I feel giddy. I feel childish. I feel uncertain. I feel fluid. I feel excited. I feel curious. Now, I've been doing this a long time, so my description tends to be rather rapid and fluid. But if everyone watching right now were to take a moment and do the same thing, you would probably have less variety than I would because you're not accustomed to it yet. But if you play with it, it will become more fluid and spontaneous. What we're trying to do is tune into the fluid stream of feeling, of sensation, of thought, and presence. And why is that important? Because that's who I am right now. I am all of that, and I am more. If I'm going to take care of myself, I have to be able to acknowledge myself at that level. If I'm exhausted, I need to sleep. I need to rest. If it's available, if I have the time and space. But if I cannot acknowledge that, I ignore that signal. And essentially, I'm ignoring myself. That is not going to lead to a self-nurturing, self-care practice. And for a lot of us, and this is how I used to live my life, mind over matter, no pain, no gain, push, push, push. This I learned in the martial arts at an early age, and I was always injured. I was always exhausted. I was often ill because I refused to acknowledge and accept myself at a core, at a fundamental level by just saying, I feel. So another way to set that energy into motion is to say, I breathe, I feel, I flow. I breathe, I feel, I flow now. And I always add now. It's such a powerful thing because it centers your attention and your awareness into this moment. Otherwise, you might say, I breathe, I feel, I flow yesterday, later today, tomorrow. Because that's the nature of our attention, of our mind. So I always bring it back to being present now. I breathe, I feel, I flow now. And I do that a few times as I breathe, and then I can start saying, I feel, notice I took a breath first. I feel uncertain. I feel I can describe my physical sensations. Hot, cold, achy, tight, tired, sore. And then my emotional state. Giddy, uncertain, surprised, sad, angry, whatever it might be. As simple as that practice is, it is profound and it is powerful. When you want to heal, when you want to change your state of being from, let's say, a negative to a positive, or from a negative just to a neutral state, you must begin with acceptance of your current state now. I've worked with a lot of cancer patients and surgical patients on rapid healing and effective recovery, and often they stall or it's really slow going, often because they refuse to accept their state now. They'll say, well, I'm not sick and I don't have this and I don't feel that. Okay, now you're going to lock yourself into that position, and not much is going to change. It's going to be a very slow process. What I found was if a person can say, you know, I'm really sad, I'm despondent, I mean, I am in the hospital, I can't go to work, I can't see my family, this feels like crap. Very good, let's start there. Now you're being truthful and honest with yourself. You've located that part of yourself in the present space-time. Now we can go from there from point A to point B through the acceptance. Now begin to breathe. Now soften the focus in your eyes with a gentle inner smile. Soften, smile, breathe. Acknowledge, accept, and allow whatever you're feeling right now. No judgment, no expectation. There's no right or wrong. You may not like what you feel and experience. You don't have to like it. Just acknowledge it. Accept it and allow it. That is how you set it into motion. That is how you begin to change and transform. Once you set that into motion, now you can begin to focus on the embodiment of energies and qualities that you wish to be now. So you're sad, you want to be not sad, all right? And it's hard to go from an extreme negative to a positive. I like to go from one extreme to neutral. That's my goal first. If I can get to neutral, then I can get to positive. But what often happens is I'm not in acceptance of who I am, where I am, and what's going on right now. And I want it to shift quickly, and it's not happening. And now I'm judging myself harshly. I'm getting frustrated, and I'm getting more angry. Not very effective. So what I like to do is say, I breathe, I feel, I flow, soften, smile, breathe, acknowledge, accept, and allow. No judgment, no expectation. This is where I am. And now I'm going to breathe and allow that energy to flow down into the ground through my center as if I'm standing under a waterfall, and just let it flow out of my body. And that is discharging energy out of the body. And the more negative I can discharge, the closer to neutral I am getting. Doesn't take much, but you do have to breathe. Now, I do have physical movements that I add to that. I can't do them in my vocal booth here because I don't have space, but you can see examples of that on my website on stressdefense.com. Just set it into motion, let it flow, go to neutral. And if all you get to is neutral, you have achieved an amazing transformation from a negative state to a neutral state. Neutral is fertile territory for anything. It's the mother of all transformation. And that is not a concept that we have in our culture here. It's, the big swing of the pendulum. It's for or against, good or bad, right or wrong. It's really, let's try to get to center, to neutral acceptance. This is a term in Tai Chi we call Wu Qi. And Wu Qi means before separation. And it's part of the Taoist cosmology of before the Big Bang, there was a singularity, oneness. And then out of that void, there was a spark. And that spark gave rise to yin, yang, the two polarities. So Wu Qi is the state before the activation of those two polarities. I like to describe Wu Qi as a state of total acceptance. So when I teach Tai Chi, we start in Wu Qi and we drop right into it. And we just listen and breathe, acknowledge, accept, and allow everything as it is without any judgment or expectation. And it may take us a few minutes to get there, but we're not going to start moving until we are there. That is home base. That is where we begin, and that is where we return to at the end of the form. Neutral. For me, in my daily practice, I meditate every day, anywhere from a few minutes to an hour. My goal first is to become still, to become quiet, and then to become neutral. Not an easy task. It's not as easy as it sounds. Becoming still, quiet, and neutral requires a couple of things. One, you got to have boundaries. You have to put a do not disturb sign out and say, for the next 10 minutes, I am not going to be distracted or interrupted. And that's a challenge. But if you can establish that, now you have the space to fill with stillness, silence, and neutrality. Any questions?
Question, but I have an observation and a gratitude offering. That Wu Chi part I've never heard before, and I really appreciate that immensely. So, thanks for bringing that forward. That's a good one to offer space to be able to, the starting with that, moving into form, and then returning to that. That's a daily practice, like thousands of times a day, right? So
Exactly.
anyway.
Yeah.
Not a lot of questions, but I appreciate it.
No, that's a wonderful acknowledgement. And to your statement about you come back to it 1,000 times a day, you get there by coming back to your breath in full acknowledgement now. If you are taking a conscious breath, and you don't have to breathe artificially, no, oftentimes I'm just sitting or standing and I just take a breath, a natural breath. But I feel it. I acknowledge it. And if I am acknowledging and feeling that single breath, I am in alignment mentally, physically, and emotionally in the present space-time. Because you can only breathe in the present. Mm-hmm. So that breath practice is common among so many esoteric traditions and embodiment practices, but it's so simple. It's just the simple acknowledgement of feeling that breath now. And it brings my mental body into my physical body. Now the question is, can I keep it there for more than a second or two? And that's where deepening the practice comes in. Instead of one breath, let's make 3 breaths. And from 3, let's go to 6, go to 9. I like to work in multiples of 3. But that becomes the core of becoming still. Now, it's called relative stillness. It's not absolute, otherwise you wouldn't be breathing. All right? But if I'm standing or sitting in stillness, my physical body is not running around the room. My mental body is not bouncing between dimensions. I am keeping it in my breath and in my center for 3, 6, 9, 12 breaths at a time. Don't judge yourself harshly if your mind wanders, because that's what the mind loves to do. Just acknowledge it and say, come on back. Come back to this breath now. Let's start over again. As simple as that is a core practice of self-love and self-care, because most of us live in a fragmented state of being. We are not present for more than a moment at a time. We do not acknowledge that we can integrate, center, and align ourselves at will. For a lot of people, it's sort of like it happens sometimes. I don't know how it happens. Right? So it happens when I'm doing something that I'm really focused on or enjoying. But they don't really understand that you can do it simply by intending to do it and focusing on acknowledging that breath. When you live in a fragmented state, that tends to fragment and become larger and more intense. And that's where separation anxiety comes from. We're talking about separation from self, mind from body. And that's something that I suffered from most of my life because I was so hyper aware of threat that I was always focusing ahead to be prepared for a worst case scenario. And by doing that, what I didn't realize was I was fragmenting. I was sending my mind ahead of my body, out of my center. And then my body would start to show signs of anxiety and panic. So I learned that a lot of undefined anxiety is often the result of fragmentation. You bring the pieces back into alignment, those feelings go away right away, immediately. And I can attest to that because I suffered from high anxiety and panic attacks for most of my life. Even while I was training in all these things, I just thought that this was how I was supposed to operate. And then when I saw that it wasn't effective, that it was the source of my anxiety, I just said, well, all I need to do is stay in alignment as often as I can. That's practicing 1,000 times a day, just coming back to that breath. Every time I start to feel anxious or tense for no reason or distracted, I just come back to my breath and those feelings disappear. That's a good self-care.
Did you ever study any of the Mayan, glyphs? Have you ever researched any of those?
No.
There's one, every time you see a glyph that's a representation of a person and they have a T carved under their nose, that represents the T symbol. It's not the letter T like the Greek alphabet that we know today. It represented wind, and it represented that cross plane of living on earth, but then being above as a person walking on earth, but also connected below. And it represented breath. And it meant that the person depicted in that glyph was a priest. So there'd be all kinds of other people, but the person depicted with the T was the one that had the awareness of breath and the wind of the universe coming through them. So that's this beautiful connection. I love how multiple, like you have obviously a Tai Chi history, which is, Eastern Chinese. And then it's amazing how all of these different cultures have such a similar story over eons of separation and thousands of miles of separation. So I just really appreciate what you're saying.
Well, there's a lot of universal truths.
Word, yeah.
In every culture. And in ancient cultures, indigenous cultures, because they're not weren't as distracted, I guess, as we are, had more of a focus on connection to the earth and to the cosmos and the relation of humanity in between. And that's where a lot of the, quote, spiritual practices originate from, the shamanism. And it's not really based upon a dogma as it is an observation.
Exactly.
We are here in relationship to everything else. And so I was really attracted to Taoism because of that. I looked at that and I went, yeah, that makes sense to me. It's like it's about harmony. And then I studied Aikido and Hapkido and all these other martial arts where there's a lot of harmonizing, joining, redirecting, grounding, because I needed it. And I had to learn it physically first to understand how to apply that internally.
Well, thank you for doing those studies and doing that work. Because
you're welcome.
There's also in Quiche Mayan, which is a dialect of Mayan and kind of a its own group within the whole Mayan everything. They say kind of like aloha, right? They say in Lakesh. And it means I am another yourself. We are reflections of each other. And I'm just feeling you like that. So I really appreciate your words tonight immensely.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just editing a podcast this morning in which I was talking about being seen in the presence of others as a reflection of self. When you have a group of people that come together without judgment or expectation, and you stand in the center of that circle, no words have to be spoken. You are seeing yourself reflected back to you. That is such a powerful experience because it cuts right through the identity, through the illusion, through the character. It's just, I am here, I am seen, I am recognized. And it's a great communal experience as well.
Well, let's spread that to everybody and see what happens. You know what I mean? Yeah. Because I don't know. I really believe that people are thirsty to get away from the dogma that's being shoved in their faces through all of the media these days. And this consciousness that you're articulating right now, I think there's a hunger and a thirst for that. So
absolutely. I just finished 21 days of no media, no social media, no alcohol, no THC, no sugar, because I got to a point where I just felt sort of almost toxic from the media field. You know, it's weaponized against us to keep us in a state of hypervigilance and fear and always coming back and seeing what's next. And I was like, nope, I'm going to stop that right now. And on day one, by the end of, not even the end of day one, I felt calmer. I felt clearer. I had more energy. I was being creative. And I also saw the pattern habit of how often I was looking at my phone or social media. And it was blaringly obvious that was enough of that. So I highly recommend that, because how are you going to locate yourself when you are drowning in the energetic field of technology and media? I don't think it's possible.
Right.
There's too much noise. And that's why I go back to stillness, silence, and neutral. You know, I'll put on noise-canceling headphones. I live in New York City, and there's always noise. Cars and sirens and everything. I put on my headphones, and I go in to my inner sanctum of stillness, and I envision that as a pyramidal space between my solar plexus and my heart. And all I have to do is enter. And once I am there with myself. And I can feel myself. I can hear myself. I can see my thoughts. I can see how I am reacting to whatever it is I've been looking at. And then I don't judge it. I just let it go. And it's almost like dissolving into the space itself. And then I just find a rhythm. My breath will just become sort of rhythmic and easy. I am resting in that space. And it can even be just a few minutes, but those few minutes, it's a total reset. I am back to me again. I'm not fragmented. I'm not in a hyper reactive state any longer. My mind is clear. My heart is calm. My energy balanced. That's it. That's my essential self-love, self-care practice now. So I have another mantra that I often use, which is open, flow, trust, center, ground, relax, listen, and observe. Open, flow, trust, center, ground, relax, listen, and observe. And so I'll recite that a few times. That's my command to myself. I'm going to open all my energy channels, let them flow without resistance, trust my heart, and I start from above and I go right down through my body. Open, flow, trust, right down to my center, my dantian, my hara, into the ground. Then I relax. I listen and observe without judgment or expectation. And that sort of sets me into that alignment in the present. Then it's breath to breath.
That's very helpful, because one of the things I was wondering about so I just want to do a quick shout out to Aaron, because he also has a nonprofit and a church that does psychedelics. And this is such a good reflection of two similar reflections coming together to harmonize, to signal to the greater good that, when we are self-aware, that the signal should be bigger, right? It should not be in this contraction of, that's me, not you, that sort of thing. I love the saying from Robert Edward Grant: when you stop judging, what you see, you'll start to love what you attract. It's because we don't like ourselves. We're not in our bodies. We don't know how we're feeling. So when that reflection is uncomfortable, we think it's something not us. And if we are ever going to get over this insulting part of humanity that we're in right now, we're going to understand that everything I see that I judge is me. And in one form or another, because the fragmentation has pulled our energy out there, right? And like you were saying, when we become that embodied, aware, flowing, breathing, awake, calm being, then everything that I think I judge because I'm not, I can start to see as part of self. And doesn't mean that you identify with it, but that person is a soul, and that person is love, and that person is fragmented. And I see their pain because, or I judge their pain because I'm fragmented too.
Yeah, well said.
So I'm
eating all that. That was good. That was really good.
In that vein, I want to do a shout out to Evoke Magic, because yeah, I've got 3 of your magics here, because there's so many medicines, and this is one of my other favorite medicines that I also take, because they're formulas. This one's clarity, this one's sensuality, and then this is their tincture. And just like we shouldn't get caught in, I'm only identifying with this little box, this opens us up. This makes us more communal. So just like the mushrooms are meant to create communication, right? They're master communicators. They're curious. They digest the things that the nervous system doesn't need to hold on to anymore. And this is everything that Ron is bringing to our attention right now. These are things that the nervous system...
I would say the mushrooms digest the false identity.
Ooh.
Word, yeah. What happens after the digestion in that theory? Like if you pull that string a little bit.
Then you reveal your authentic presence.
Exactly, yes.
Which is behind the mask of identity. You know, as an actor, I had to become someone else. And that's not just in body. I had to embody their history, their background, their belief systems, their life experience. And by doing it again and again and again, I sort of realized, oh, that's just an analogy for life in general. We're all doing it. We're all playing that role. And medicines, natural medicines and psychedelics, if they're used consciously and gently, can help us to sort of dismantle that scaffolding of identity, which prevents us from locating our authentic presence. That's been my experience with the medicines. And I'm very thankful for that. That is something that I don't think I would have experienced in another way, and certainly not with such a clear path.
The scaffolding of identity, that was beautiful. Thank you for that.
Sure.
Yeah.
You're not who you think you are.
And then once you get through it, you kind of are.
Yes, exactly. We're the same person we were born as.
Well, that's the goal. The goal is to remember who we are as we came into this incarnation. You know, I've worked with so many people that have all of these innate gifts and talents that they do not acknowledge. Often because they were told, no, that's not important. What's important is you have to make money, you know? And this is what I was saying about my children, because I had worked with so many unhealthy, unhappy people who never fully acknowledged and developed their authentic presence. I said, I don't want that to happen to my kids. I want my children to really connect early on to that authentic part of themselves. My son's a musician. My daughter is an artist and a choreographer. Not because we are, but that was part of that's part of who they are. And when they get to experience themselves through that, there is no filtering. It is as pure as can be. And that is where the expansion happens. The clarity and expansion. I know who I am every time I give this gift to myself. I acknowledge my own gift and I play.
Unless someone has someone else to share or ask a question or make a comment, I will prepare our closing blessing. And before I do that, I just want to say thank you all so much for showing up. This is amazing. It's so cool that you're here, Aaron. And we're really hoping to bring more entheogenic communities together so that we have a stronger presence as this United States of Anxiety decides whether it's fragment more or start to harmonize. And hopefully, as more and more intentional communities come together, not just, start, but come together, that gigantic ripple effect will help people understand what you're talking about, Ron, that we need self-love, self-acceptance, and then acceptance of others in that unconditional way that shows that we walk our talk and that we are safe to be with in ourselves and with others.
Thank you for that.
All right, you guys ready for the closing blessing?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so first, just let me acknowledge Novael Leticia. She is our field and architect of blooming. She's with us in the field, and she wanted to share this with you. Closing blessing. The garden is within. And so we return, not back, but deeper, into the bloom that never ends. With every breath, we spiral back into our bodies as temples of wisdom, keepers of codes, portals of presence. We give thanks for this hour of bloom, for what has been spoken, felt, released, remembered, and for what blooms in silence still. We bless the ones who came, the ones who will come, and the ones who simply listened with their souls. May the seeds planted tonight find fertile soil in our lives, germinating in courage, growing through love, and blossoming into action that serves the whole. May the bloom field remain open in our hearts, in our hands, in our homes, and in the holy now. The garden is within you. The bloom is who you are. The spiral continues. In awe, in joy, in soul, in yes. We seal the sacred space with the kiss of coherence, the hum of homecoming, and the sound of Shabda. Om Allah. It is done. It is blessed. It is blooming.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Sila, Ashe. Yeah, that's beautiful.
You all are so beautiful. Thank you for being here. Ron has been with us for a long time. He comes in and shares his wisdom. Please reach out if you have questions or you want to continue the conversation, or maybe have him as a guest, etc. Check out Stress Defense. It is an incredible wealth of knowledge on that website, and he offers a lot of free content. And I can't thank you all enough for making this Hour of Bloom feel so good, authentic, and I take it as a powerful sense of self from here on.
Thank you, Christy.
Yes.
All that feeling comes from you, by the way.
Well, thank you. It's all of us. It's a collective. All right, that's it for now, my friends. Thank you. Mwah. Till our next bloom. Om Allah.
Bye-bye.